is the We Knew the Moon podcast, where we love all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, and spooky. Hosted by me, Dee Safier, co-founder of the Goddess Temple Twickenham, and joined by lots of special guests. This is Dee, and this is the We Knew the Moon podcast. It is the place where we like to talk about all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, and spooky. The official podcast of the Goddess Temple Twickenham. So do check that out, goddesstempletwickenham.org. Also, if you want to watch the unedited videos of season 4, then do head over to Patreon and become a patron of any value for a monthly subscription. And you will have access to video episodes of all of season 4. So that's patreon.com/We Knew the Moon. Today I'm joined by Sareta. Hi,
hello.
Sareta.
Again, I feel like part of the furniture, this podcast.
Yes, I love having you on the podcast. So Sareta, you are content creator. You've got an amazing Instagram at Hey Sareta. Do check her out. All the links are in the show notes. And you have your own podcast, Women Who Rebrand. Amazing podcast. Do check that out. Today is really exciting because last week we talked about New Orleans and basically planned our holiday together while making a podcast episode. But this week it's your turn to present a topic to me. And that topic is not a surprise to those who listened to last week's episode, but for those who haven't, it is, drumroll,
vampires. Yes. And by the time this goes out, you would have gone on a fabulous trip, the homeland of, well, I'm going to say it's the homeland of vampires. Where are you going? Romania, right?
I'm going to Romania, yeah. So I'm going to Bucharest and I'm having a day trip into Transylvania to go visit the Bran Castle, which is Vlad the Impaler's castle. He was like a warlord or something. I'll know more when I get back. But Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, apparently based Dracula on him because he had this bloodlust. There were lots of rumors about him killing people and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, Vlad the Impaler is not a kind of cutesy nickname. So it gives a bit of an indication of his character type.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited. I've always wanted to go. Was supposed to go with my partner. He fell ill. Tried to get you to come along, but you're being loyal to your job, blah, blah. So I'm going with my mum.
Which will be amazing. And I'm so gutted that it wasn't like a week later because that's when I finished my contract. And I could have come and seen all this vampire stuff. And, well, you may know now or even after listening to this podcast episode that I have a special place in my heart for vampires. I don't know why, but there's just something quite sexual about vampires.
Yeah, for sure. They're always portrayed as quite sexy beings, huh? I mean, seducing people and the sort of the idea of everlasting life has been a seductive idea
that too.
In lots of cultures. I mean, for me, I can't imagine anything worse. We were watching, I was talking about this in the last episode, we were watching Interview with a Vampire. And like, I suppose if you have eternal life, you've got more time to make money. But also, imagine if you were a vampire living for eternity, but you were poor and homeless. You'd be like, fuck this, man. Will there ever be any kind of escape from this, you know?
Well, the generational worth must be there if you're living forever. And I would just make every day fun. You would have to. I would have to. Yeah. But it's funny that you say that because all the sexy stuff and all the amazing things about vampires, I completely forgot about that main thing about living forever.
Yeah.
So now that's just like a bonus.
Yeah. But you know, the Fountain of Youth and all these different stories. There's loads of people seeking that everlasting life, right? And vampires is just one of them. Exactly. But yeah, sexy vampires, again, Interview with a Vampire, prime example. I think that made us all very excited about vampires as teenagers, huh?
Yes, definitely. So you've come up with the different connotations for vampires, because I was going to ask you, what is the first thing that you think about when you think of a vampire? Like if you could describe a vampire down to a T, what would you say?
Yeah, I do go Interview with a Vampire first off. So I think like very pretty, very seductive, probably living this like extravagant lifestyle, which goes against this kind of, I don't know, if you're committing lots of crimes, you'd think you'd be on the sort of down low, but quite often they're just out there, in society.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one of the things that makes me think, oh, this is unrealistic, because you can't go around killing this many nobles and not be caught.
So when I think of vampires, I do think of the same thing, like seduction, money. But I also think if you have lived, like, I guess if you were turned, let's say, 17 something, just think of all the fabulous outfits you would have. And you know how fashion comes around, you'd get to a point where you wouldn't have to buy anything.
Yeah, you're just like,
mend
I'll
those
put these in my
holes,
wardrobe. I'll get them out in 20 years. That's apparently the cycle, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So they've got everything and just fabulous gowns forevermore. So I think that's kind of a bonus. The sucking of necks to get blood, or sucking wherever, it could be thighs. It's just they go for a main artery, right? Or a good artery, don't know, where it flows. Yes. Admittedly, that bit puts me off. But as we are in the 21st century, 2020, I don't know how it works. It's like you go a year, 100 years, whatever. There are milk alternatives. So there must be blood alternatives. They would have made something synthetic, like they did in True Blood.
In True Blood, exactly. What was it called in True Blood?
It was called True Blood.
Oh, right, yes. I see.
Oh, now
what they've done there.
But apparently it tastes gross, and it's not as good as the real thing. But as many alternatives are, like the cheese alternative, it tastes gross. It'll do for whenever. It's a bit coconutty.
And it gets better over time. You
get used to it.
They used to just have soy milk. And now we've got like almond milk and coconut milk and all that kind of stuff. And vegan cheese is much better than it used to be. So give it time, vampires. You have time. That's one thing you do have. That seems to be another common theme, right? Ethical vampirism. Because in Interview with a Vampire, at the beginning, Brad Pitt really struggles with killing people. So he lives off rats. And in True Blood, you have the vampires that are okay with drinking blood, and then the ones that are only drinking this True Blood.
In this day and age, I totally believe that you could be a vegan vampire. So, according to history.com, we're going to get the true meaning of a vampire now.
Yes.
Vampires are evil, mythological beings who roam the world at night, searching for people whose blood they feast on. They may be the best known classic monsters of all. Most people associate vampires with Count Dracula or Count Duckula, as I used to watch that back in the day, the legendary blood-sucking subject of Bram Stoker's epic novel, Dracula, which was published in 1897, can you believe? So what is a vampire? There are almost as many different characteristics of vampires as there are vampire legends. But the main characteristic of a vampire is that they drink human blood. They typically drain the victim's blood using their sharp fangs, killing them and turning them into vampires. Or they just drink their blood and just leave them to it. Because I don't believe in turning everyone. I don't think everyone deserves to be a vampire. If I was a vampire, I'd be thinking logically, are you just food? Are you a bit of pleasure? Because we don't have to suck them dry either. Yeah. Let's be honest. Or am I going to make you my lifelong friend, my buddy, my pal, my hoe, and I'm going to turn you so we can live together forever?
It's so funny because I said that about when, again, referring to the documentary Interview with a Vampire, I was like, Tom Cruise's character, Lestat, didn't even know Louis, Brad Pitt's character. Like they hadn't even properly met. And then he decides, oh, you're going to be my friend for life, basically. And by life, we mean eternity. That's like a big commitment.
Forevermore. Yeah. He just saw like a little spark that he liked. He was like, yep, bestie. But to be fair, I've met a lot of people like that. And I'm like, you will be mine. You are so awesome. You are going to be my best friend and you don't even know it yet. Yeah. So maybe that's how I might just turn people. But then...
And then if you can make them dependent on you because you have to teach them how to be a vampire, then you got your nails in, your claws in.
Yeah, your fangs. Fangs.
Literally.
Have you seen... So I've always... You know how you can get your teeth Like body changes
modification,
like body modification, yeah. Have you seen like the fangs that you could get? I would totally get them because I think they look so cute.
I think they're super cute too. Should we get some? Like not permanent ones, but...
Well, I would get permanent. It's like the stuff that they build your teeth up with.
Yeah, it's just like veneers, basically.
The bonding or whatever. So I've actually got them on these teeth for your Patreons. I'm actually pointing to the teeth next to my front teeth. So the front ones didn't look so long. So they added to there. So whilst he was doing it in my head, I was like, can't you just add some pointy ones to the other ones so I look like a vampire? See how much this costs and then we can do it together.
How much does it cost to get vampire teeth? Yes, Google, that is what I meant. How much?
And obviously you can buy them and stick them on.
A synthetic removable type is around $100 each. To have permanent set, it's between $800 and $2,500. Filing the teeth down and placing a permanent cap on your tooth.
Oh, yeah. So that is like veneers.
Yeah, but then actually the removable ones are between $2,000 and $5,000.
But what's removable? Removable on the day? Because I want them in for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have to wake up and put my fangs in.
I don't know.
We'll do some research. I might add some cute diamantes on mine and stuff. Or just get a grill, vampire grill. That'd be amazing. Okay, so vampire superstition thrived in the Middle Ages, especially as the plague entered towns. The disease often left behind bleeding mouth lesions on its victims, which was to the uneducated was a sure sign of obviously you're a vampire. Vampires weren't really treated very nicely, obviously, just like witches and stuff. They were probably like put to death, which we're going to touch upon later. But there's so much around vampires. This seems to be like one of those urban myth type things that is a story that's treasured by so many people because there's books, there's films, there's people who believe that they're vampires and want to get into that realm of, you know, the dark side. Like I said, I have a love for vampires, but I'm like, nice vampire, surely. It's not all doom and gloom, right?
Whenever you watch Interview with the Vampire and True Blood and the Twilight series, there's always the evil vampires and then the better ones or the good ones. But even the good ones, they're not really good, are they? They're just like less bad than the bad ones.
I guess. So have you read any vampire books?
Yeah, so I loved Anne Rice. So I read most of her series because Interview with the Vampire is the first in a series. And I actually really recently, like last year, read the Twilight series. I know it's for young adults, but my neighbor, who is a bit witchy woo-woo as well, she really recommended the series. She said it was really well written. And I have to admit, I really enjoyed the books. I recommend the books. The films cringed me out. I don't know whether it was the acting or whether it was just, I don't know.
Just a bit too teenagery for you.
In the books, they kind of go into the characters more and they explain the problematic stuff a bit more. And they don't, in the films, it's all kind of washed over. But I don't know. It was just creepy and not in a good way. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the films. Maybe the films were more young adulty and I don't know. But the books I actually really, really enjoyed reading. So yeah. And then the other person I really liked, but she wasn't so vampire-y, was a writer. Oh no. Poppy C. Bright. I don't know if you ever read any of her stuff. She was fucking awesome. No. She had loads of vampire characters in different books. As a teenager, especially, I was all about the vampires.
Yeah. And you mentioned the fact that you watched Interview with a Vampire Partner. I'm trying to think if that was the first kind of vampire film that I watched. I absolutely loved it. The acting and the storylines were superb. But you mentioned that was a book as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people that reads the book, sees the film. I don't really read a lot. I listen to Audible and I just go straight to the film. But then again, I'm sitting next to my partner who's a book fiend. He's like, this is not how it should be. It's not happening in the book. So was the book and the film similar or just not really?
I can't remember which one I did first, watching the film or reading the book. The books are amazing. Anne Rice is fucking phenomenal. And like I said, it was a whole series. I might reread them again. It's about time.
Yeah.
So I don't remember which one I did first, but definitely the film does the book justice. It's a rare case of the film doing, because the film is just fucking perfection, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
My partner hadn't seen it.
Okay. Was he wowed?
Yeah, he really enjoyed it. But yeah, I can't imagine my life without Interview with a Vampire. So I was like, where were you? Yeah,
what was he doing back in 1990 something?
I mean, it was such a great time we talked about the Dracula film that came out at the time. Yeah. Again, amazing cast, Gary Oldman, Richard E. Grant, Keanu Reeves at his peak, and Winona Ryder in her peak, like fucking awesome. Good. Obviously The Craft came out around about then. It was such a great time for films.
Yes.
If you were in that sort of spooky vibe, which I think we both were. So.
But another one that is one of my favorite, based on the book, obviously, Dracula, that came out first. And I remember, I think I must have been in primary school. I was really young. I really wanted to see it because, you know, do you remember watching, not Top of the Pops? Yeah, Top of the Pops and stuff like that. They had the lady from the Eurythmics. What's her name?
Enya?
No, that's not Enya. Annie Lennox.
Annie Lennox, that's who I meant.
Annie Lennox. Yes. She did a song for the soundtrack and it was so good. Coming through these arms again. And then back in those days, you'd have the song. In the song, you'd have clips from the film. So I just remember watching the music video and just seeing all the clips from the film because it was 18 and obviously I couldn't see an 18 at that point. And I was just like, this looks like the best movie in the world. I actually want to be a vampire. And then fast forward a few years and I got to see it, rented it from Blockbuster. Do you know what? That's probably my all-time favorite vampire movie. So good.
I mean,
so good.
It is.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, well, so I started watching it as well, but it was a little bit slower pace than Interview with the Vampire starts. So we decided to save it for tomorrow being Sunday.
Okay.
You know, I just wanted it Sunday morning pajama vibes for that film. But yeah, I seen it when it came out or, you know, in the 90s at some point. And yeah, just loved it. Huge fan of Keanu Reeves at the time. So that was one of my main driving factors of going to see it. And yeah, it's just like, it's so beautifully filmed. The costumes. Because the other thing I associate vampires with is like gorgeous 1800s costumes.
Yeah, you would have to have some kind of velvety cape of some description.
Or some ball gowns and masquerade balls and
things around your head and everything like that. And elaborate hairstyles stuff. Because you've got perfect hair, so you can do anything. Yes, it's very vampire-y hair. Vampire aesthetic. Vampire aesthetic. Yeah, so those are my top two. But then did you watch? Oh yeah, you mentioned that. True Blood. I think I've watched that over at least 3 or 4 times. It's just yeah.
What were the two guys called? Bill and Eric, right?
Bill and Eric.
Eric Bill Northman. Or Tim Eric?
Eric, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
See, her going out with Bill just felt like her dating her dad's friend or something.
Literally, he was so boring. Suck it. And it was like, it got to the point where I'm just like, Bill, can you just shut up? Either find something to do, stop moping around about being a vampire, just drink your True Blood and just get over it. Like, come on, you're a vampire. You should be living it up with all that money as well. Wasn't he rich? Ugh.
Can't remember. But yeah, probably, because all vampires are rich, apparently, according to TV. Eric was just so hot as well, huh?
Yeah. It was a good series. I wish it could come back, but it just got a bit too weird towards the end.
I actually stopped watching it after a little bit, but who was the other guy that I really liked? The werewolf.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name in real life. I think as it started, the emphasis was on the vampires, and then it kind of just got more and more like shapeshifters and werewolves, which kind of reminds me of Twilight, because haven't they got like different types of, I would say, fictitious, mythological creatures in it?
Yeah, there's always werewolves with the vampires, isn't there?
Kind of makes sense, though, because as we said, vampires, that's another thing. They only come out at night because the sun will destroy them. And werewolves are at night, innit? So they would like...
Joe Manganiello. Alcide Herveau.
Alcide. Yes. He was quite cool.
I stopped watching it because it did go a bit weird and...
with the fairies and stuff.
Oh, yeah, because she was part fairy, wasn't she?
So those are my kind of top 3 kind of vampire... Oh, no. One more. How can I forget? Blade.
Of course. The original, please, right?
Well,
I actually haven't seen I haven't even seen it. Is it a sequel or is it a remake?
I think there's like three of them. Yeah. But as true sequels go, kind of not as good as the first one.
Yeah.
But because I'm a fan, I had to watch. So, you know, I watched and it was still cool. But Blade, he was kind of a kick-ass vampire. I can't remember if did he hate being a vampire?
I can't remember. Do you know the first time I watched Blade, I was having a sleepover at my friend's house and I was 7. And for some reason, her dad was like, oh, I got this film for you. Made us watch it. I started crying because 7 is too young to watch Blade. Stop.
Yeah, my son's 8. I don't think I'd let him watch Blade now.
I feel like as a parent, if you choose to let your kid do something like that, that's fine. But like, don't let their friends
the scares.
Right? Again, I'm not a parent, but I imagine you'd have reservations about showing it to your own kid, but especially someone else's kid, right?
Yes.
So absolutely. I obviously get sad. I start crying, and my mom has to come pick me up.
One of those.
Which wasn't that bad because actually my friend lived on the same street. So,
okay.
But yeah, watching that film at age 7 in a unfamiliar house.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm trying to do the maths here because I'm sure I didn't watch Blade until I was in my 20s. But I think it was one of those ones that I don't know. It just didn't get the publicity that the other ones got.
Yeah.
No, maybe because it was more action. It wasn't necessarily vampire.
Yeah,
it was still cool nonetheless.
1982.
What, Blade? Sure.
I'm thinking of a different film. I'm thinking of Blade Runner.
Yeah, that's a completely different film, Dee. That's very futuristic. And I hope all the references that you mentioned about all of these things weren't about Blade Runner and was about Blade.
It was half-half.
So you need some of this vampire elixir to keep your brain ticking, obviously. That eternal youth.
The film I watched at my friend's house was Blade Runner.
Why?
The film I saw later and really liked was Blade.
Blade. Okay.
Because we've been talking, one of the underlying current themes of this podcast is amazing 90s movies. Wesley Snipes was in a lot of them. Demolition Man. Did you watch
Demolition Man was the greatest. Hello, of course I did. Demolition Man was amazing. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Sylvester Stallone.
Stallone. 1 second, sorry.
So it wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger in Demolition?
Was it not?
Sylvester Stallone.
Totally got that wrong. To be fair, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone kind of samey. If it wasn't that one in the film, it was going to be in the other one, wasn't it? Really. But anyway, yeah, that was an amazing film. And I'm going to have to watch it again because obviously I've forgotten.
Do you remember they had the sex scene, which was basically virtual reality? Oh, you're gonna have to watch it again.
I don't remember. Yeah, I think I only watched it like the first time and then a few years later, so it's completely gone in my brain. That's a Sunday movie.
In Demolition Man, because he gets brought back in the future, and so he's in this like crazy future environment, and so a lot of things have changed and blah blah blah. But he can never figure out how in the bathroom instead of toilet paper they've got these 3 seashells. And no one explains to him how he's supposed to use these 3 seashells. And when I first moved into my flat in Chiswick, you remember my flat when I lived in Chiswick?
Yes, very nice.
In my bathroom, I put 3 seashells and not one person ever commented. I'm going to put that back. I'm going to install 3 more seashells.
Yes, vampires. So I was going to ask you, because you know I'm all about the questions and finding out random stuff. We've spoken about 4 amazing vampire-based films, series type thing. If you could be turned, and I mean, both of us said we'd be vampires in a heartbeat, so it's not really going to be taking much, and we'd probably just get turned by the man down the road. But what vampire, who would you choose that could turn you? And it doesn't have to be any of the people that we've mentioned already, but what vampires
it would be
would you allow to turn you? Louis
from Interview with the Vampire, Brad Pitt. Yeah. Because, in Interview with the Vampire, he changes Kirsten Dunst, and it's a really weird relationship that you can't go into too much. It's not like there's anything sexual between them or whatever.
No, but it's she's fatherly, unclely kind of.
Yeah, but a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit, because obviously she's in the body of a child, but she's mentally like
she's
300
a
years
woman.
old. Obviously, watching that film as a teenage goth, I was like, that fucking bitch, I'm so jealous of her. I wish that I was his weird little child vampire bride.
You could have waited till you were like 21, Dee, to get turned and then been like, female, come get me.
Yeah.
So would this be a sexual relationship or would you just be besties?
With Brad Pitt? I don't know. If Brad Pitt in Interview with a Vampire, I mean, I don't want to presume. I don't know how he feels. Consent is important, so.
Yes,
but
it is.
I would only want to be a vampire if I could live off of people. I'd go to the goth clubs where, I used to go out and there was all these people that were obsessed with vampirism and blah, blah, blah. And I think you could very easily just feed off those people, like you say, not drain them to death. They would fucking
like
love
in
it.
True Blood, they go to that club. I can't remember the name of the club. Yeah.
If I could do that with Brad Pitt.
Okay.
What about you?
What about me? Probably Eric Northman. Most definitely. I don't know what I'm
second choice.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know if we'd do the whole sexual thing. Because, the lady that he turned that lives with him kind of loves him. I always thought she was cool. I loved her outfits always. And her
maybe
hair,
I'd want to be turned by one of the girl vampires, and have your bestie for life. Why it's got to be all about men, huh? Because, she would be the one.
Yeah, I'd be with them too. I would just probably live with them, have the club.
Their club was awesome.
In my PVC outfit and just have a lot of fun. I'd hang out with them. Those would be my main crew. Probably go down the road and see Blade now and again. He's a bit miserable, so can't be spending all my time with him. I'm
Googling what the club was called.
Fantasia. I would be turned by Eric Northman and you would be turned by Louis. Speaking of fictitious people, obviously I've mentioned Eric Northman, you've mentioned them. Let's get a bit of flavour in there. If I had to do something fictitious, I would happily move to Wakanda and live in the cold weather with M'Baku from Black Panther, just because he's a fictitious person and vampires are fictitious. So I thought I'd throw that in there for the mix, which cleverly leads into, are vampires real?
I once read an article that proved, in quotation marks, that vampires can't possibly exist. But I think there's a flaw in their logic. I'm not saying vampires exist, but the argument they used I don't think is correct. And it worked out that if they need to feed like once a week, for example, and if everyone they bite turns into a vampire, then the whole world would be vampires. We would all be vampires by now because they would convert everyone. Either they would kill them or they would convert them. But there are some people that believe, or some of the vampire myth is that they can, as we've discussed, just drink blood without killing or converting.
Yeah.
So if that is possible, then who knows if they're real or not? Like that argument doesn't work, right?
Right. Plus, they can heal really quickly, can't they? So again, I'm getting spliced. I need to do more research with the whole vampire thing because obviously these films add bits. So in True Blood, you could fix people's wounds by putting vampire blood and also wipe their memory, right? With the whole glare thing. So if you're walking down the street, you get bitten by a vampire, they suck a bit of your blood, but you're still alive. They fix your wound, never see it. Wipe your memory. No one knows.
In Interview with a Vampire, having a bit of vampire blood is what converts you into a vampire.
Oh.
So it depends.
We need to find the truth.
We need to interview a vampire.
That could be a good follow-on episode, actually interviewing a vampire.
Yeah, if you any vampires or self-identifying vampires, because remember in Interview with a Vampire, another legend, Christian Slater was the journalist interviewing Brad Pitt and getting his story down. We would love to be your Christian Slater. Let us know.
That'd be quite cool. Right.
Oh, so if you're female, that would make the perfect episode for women who rebrand.
Rebranded as a vampire. Yes, exactly. So we've talked about quite a lot of myths. And again, I completely forgot about the walking around at night because obviously you get burnt up by the sun, which is kind of true. How to kill a vampire. Can you remember?
Yeah, because it's like the start of Interview with a Vampire, which I watched the other day. And he argues that some of them are not true. So the stake through the heart.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Sunlight.
Yeah.
Then there's other things that are meant to be like deterrents, like garlic or holy water.
Yes, you could sprinkle and they're like kind of thing. That probably goes into exorcisms, doesn't it?
Yeah. Crucifixes and stuff. I bet these rumors have come from like Scandinavian group of people who were so pale that they had to avoid the sun. And
probably got the plague, so they had lesions in their mouths anyway.
Yeah, and they were invading, so they were killing people. And here you go, they're vampires.
Yeah. I also read that some people who are believed to be vampires had symptoms, I don't know how you say it, porphyria. Have you heard of that? Porphyria. Should we ask Google what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Siri. Hey, Siri. Not cooperate. Oh, yeah. Hey, Siri. What's porphyria?
Porphyria is a group of liver disorders in which substances called porphyrins build up in the body, negatively affecting the skin or nervous system. Should I keep going?
Yes.
Okay, did you hear that? Right. And it's believed that some symptoms of porphyria can be temporarily relieved by ingesting blood. Ooh.
Your own blood or someone else's, or does that not matter?
Well, it doesn't. Probably not your own blood because you're the one that's ill. So I guess you probably need some other blood. Siri said it's a disease that affects your liver.
Like jaundice makes you yellow. So imagine this one makes you like pale. That's another thing that we kind of hinted at, but vampires are always portrayed as being super pale because of, I guess, the no sunlight, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would be totally pale if I didn't have any light. I always complain about being super pale in the winter months. But yeah, so I think there's just a lot of things that, like witches, things that you may have, like diseases and stuff, and they're like, right, you're obviously a vampire. So when these people actually died, they would still stake them in the heart while they lied in their coffin or tomb or whatever, just to make sure that they didn't come back. So they wouldn't necessarily, well, they probably did stake people through the heart that they thought were a vampire, but some waited until they died to actually do it.
Do you know what else I bet you contributed to this legend? What? Okay, so you know the time like when everyone was dying of consumption and TB and I don't know if those are the same thing, and yellow fever and whatever. And actually they didn't really have, it sounds like an obvious thing, but they didn't have a clear way of assessing whether someone was dead. And some people that were so poorly, people would assume they were dead, bury them.
Oh.
And then, so exactly. But I bet you that kind of contributed. Lots of people supposedly coming back from the dead, but they weren't actually dead when they were buried. And this is why there's a lot of like people paid for someone to watch their coffin overnight to make sure that they were actually dead. Or they even have some people that have had see-through coffins and all kinds of stuff because there was such a big fear, and it was much more common than it is now, to be buried alive, literally, because they thought you were dead when you were actually just that ill. But I'm guessing that this contributed to this idea of like coming back from the dead.
Yeah, most definitely.
They're like, hey man, I wasn't even fucking dead. Do you want to wait 5 minutes before trying to inherit my estate?
Like, my body just said I need to have a long sleep to get over this, and then you just come and kill me or just bury me alive. Please, I was just resting. But I like that idea. Someone watching your coffin.
Then there was all kinds of mechanisms, like having like a string in your coffin and a bell above ground.
I would totally do that, but I'm not going to be buried. I'm going to be cremated. So that might prove.
Yeah, so let's just hope that technology has advanced so much that they can actually tell if you're dead or not.
Yeah. Well, there was a case, I haven't got the information in front of me, a few years ago of a girl, I think she was in India, and at her funeral, she actually woke up. And there was video footage of it. But to be honest, not to be like rude or distasteful, the girl that seemed like awake didn't seem awake. It was like involuntary movements kind of thing.
Oh,
so you know when you watch
mortis or something.
No, not rigor mortis, but it's just like the body just moving kind of thing. And then they took her home and then she actually died again. So she wasn't actually alive. But you know when you like you watch these videos of certain restaurants and they've got food and they're kind of like just moving around and they say, well, they're not actually alive. It's just that involuntary electricity or energy in their bodies. So maybe a lot of that happened too when these people thought that people came back to life.
Yeah. I just grabbed my forehead as you were speaking because I remembered another film which doesn't quite fall into the vampire category, but it does fall into the everlasting life / amazing 90s movie category. Death Becomes Her.
Oh, so yeah, when you were talking about eternal life and elixir, I was obviously thinking of that and didn't mention it because the box just disappeared in my head. But yeah, they definitely give off vampire vibes without being a vampire.
Because they, instead of blood, they had this elixir that they had to keep on drinking in order to kind of
keep on drinking it? I thought they had to drink it once.
They drank it once. Oh, no, that's it. They were using him to maintain their body because he was really good at... So,
but only because they messed up their body by doing silliness by fighting each other when they shouldn't have been. They should have been besties.
They should have been besties. They were. Yeah.
So would you take that potion?
I'd prefer that to being a vampire because obviously you don't have to like kill people or drink people's blood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Isabel Rossellini. Oh, fuck. The lady they get the potion from.
She's beautiful. I remember watching that as a kid and just thinking, you are stunning in that outfit. You know, the chain thing, and she takes it off and gives them a little brooch. You should totally do her for Halloween. You should totally do her for Halloween.
I almost have her hair.
You do have her hair.
Isabella Rossellini. Yes, I think that's what I said. She's fucking fabulous in the film. So if she was like, take this, you can be like me, I wouldn't even ask her what it was. I've eaten worse things and done worse shit.
So you're saying that you would happily let her turn you?
Yeah.
No questions asked?
Oh, 100%. I'd do whatever she wanted.
Okay.
Her house was awesome. Her outfit was awesome.
Because she's rich.
And she also had didn't she have
the Dobermans?
Dobermans. That was it. Yeah. I knew she had some cool animals. I mean, she literally lives my dream life. So yeah,
it's sure. Like all of these stories do really sort of glamorize living forever. It's like they make living forever like the best thing ever.
I would need guarantees that living forever would not mean living my life forever. It would have to be a different life. Because if I was forever sorting out contents insurance issues and getting my car MOT'd, do you know what I mean?
You'd have to do all that boring stuff just to, slip under the radar. Because like in the film, she was saying you can be around for a certain amount of time, but then you have to disappear. Yeah. And I think I'd be okay with disappearing as long as I just had someone that was turned with me. So you, obviously, we wouldn't be frenemies. We'd be actual be friends.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't need someone like Danny to cover us in morgue paint type thing.
Oh, you remember he used car spray paint. He found out the car spray.
Yes, that was it. Because it was true tones and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the concept of living forever does sound fun. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I wouldn't mind.
Well, if it was accompanied with being rich and you could pay someone to do all the boring admin stuff, then yeah, 100%.
We could though. But like literally, if we had the wealth that we had now, and this is just a short span. Let's say I've already planned to live to like 107. That's my life span. So 107, this is the amount of money I've got. Let's say $1 million each. Span span of 100 years, that's more millions, isn't it?
You know, buy our houses now.
Right. It's like if we bought a house in
60 billion
1600
in 5 years. You know?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And that's how we'd be rich. No mortgage because we bought our house in 1605.
Yeah, you'd have to guarantee that you got this shit sorted, because if you were a homeless vampire, it'd be very hard to get in the system and get any kind of government help or anything, because you're like, no, this is my genuine birth certificate. No, I was born in.
We could buy those. Yeah.
No, if you're homeless and you're poor.
So, all right. So we'll be rich vampires / eternal beings. Okay. So we didn't even speak about real vampires. We're just talking about the essence of real vampires.
Oh, also, you know what you could do? You could borrow lots of money from people knowing you're going to outlive them.
True.
I bet that's what vampires do.
That's true. You never have to pay it back. Just not from the banks, because obviously they keep track.
No, but like
then
from
just fake your death. Fake your death lots of times and start over. Mm-hmm. But then you would have to be the same age forevermore. So what age would you choose?
Yeah, because I was thinking this when I watched Interview with a Vampire. I was like, lucky he got turned when he was like Brad Pitt, when he was like hot and young. Because imagine, and this was probably 10. Kirsten Dunst, that she was changed when she was a child. And so one of her big frustrations was forever being a child, you know?
Yeah, I would hate that.
I was thinking,
oh my
gosh, fucking shit would it be to be fucking changed as like a really old person? So you're going to live forever, but everyone's going to treat you like an invisible old person, because you know how society is so ageist.
100%.
Although,
so what age would you choose? Because it's not even your mental, is it? Because you're just going to be super clever, because you just know everything about everything at some point.
Yeah.
But it's about the aesthetic, the look. So
I think I'll go for this age, because I like being, so I'm 39 now. I like being this age. You're not looked at as like a suspicious youth. You're an adult, but you're not like old in quotation marks.
Watch when you turn to 40. Then it's like, I'm old.
Okay. I mean, we're talking 6 months here, so that's depressing.
So you'd be 39.
Yeah. So, mid-30s. I'd be happy with that. What about you?
Okay. So I'm looking at old pictures, not now, but mentally. And you know how that Facebook thing comes up. I hate Facebook so much. Don't, Zuckerman, don't get me. I look at old photos and I'm like, I look so much better now.
Imagine having that feeling, but looking at pictures of you from 100 years ago and thinking, what was I thinking? Vampire problems.
Literally, what was that velvet gown, Sareta? What are you thinking, darling? And that crown and tiara? Those 1700s. Yeah, so I guess I would probably be 40, but I'm assuming I'm going to splice two things here. Like, Death Becomes Her with the vampire thing. The Death Becomes Her elixir makes you have that young body. So as we saw when she drank the elixir, her boobs popped up to her 20s. I like those. Yeah, I would have that. I would have my 20s boobs and bum. But if not, plastic surgery wouldn't work, would it? Because it would just undo everything.
Would it? I don't know.
It would undo it. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, because remember when Kirsten Dunst cut her hair and it all just grew back?
Grew back. It did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd have to choose a point where my hair was amazing and everything was banging. And then I could
fucking vampire comes on like your off day and you're like, really?
I know. And then you're forever like, I was ill that day and forevermore I've got COVID forevermore.
Yeah.
So let's just stick with 40. I would be a 40-year-old vampire. That's a good name for a book. 40-year-old vampire.
I like it.
Because I'm in that middle stage of not being looked at like you said, a youth or a stupid 20-something. I'm just putting these quotations because they're like stereotypes, aren't they? Because there are very clever 20-somethings. But then I'm not like ancient where people are like, ew.
And like when I have meetings, I have a lot of meetings because I work with a bunch of different organizations and whatnot. I have a lot of meetings with like the trustees, which tend to be sort of older men.
Okay.
And I feel like I have more confidence asserting myself around them, which I'm sure would grow if I was a vampire and mentally I was 300 years old. But, I'm of an age now where I feel more respect from them because they don't look at me as like a young child anymore. I'm like, I've reached an age where I'm definitely an adult and they listen to me and seek my advice. I have less imposter syndrome and stuff. So So again, I think all that would change if you had the confidence of a motherfucking vampire.
See, this is what it is, though. It's down to confidence, because imagine you just had the confidence, but you look 20, but had the confidence of a vampire. So you'd still be rocking it.
Yeah, but there'd still be people that dismissed you because of how you look. Think of Kirsten Dunst. Doesn't matter if she came up with amazing theories or whatnot. They would still be like, but she's a child. Yeah.
It's true. All right, so real vampires do exist. There are normal seeming people who drink small amounts of blood in an effort to stay healthy. And also, aren't there like those vampire facials that you can get where they actually use your own blood? Have you seen that?
Yeah, they take out your blood and then they do some centrifugal thing to get out some of the parts of the blood. And then do they inject it back, or do they massage it on you? Inject it back?
No, it's like there's a little spiky thing. It kind of looks like, if you've done pattern cutting, it looks like that kind of wheel that you use to mark. So you literally, it's the spiky thing, and you do that all over the skin.
And well, that's dermaplaning. I think that's something else.
But that's a type of doing the vampire thing. Yeah. So it's like massaging all the blood and stuff like that, bringing it to the surface. There's ways to be young by using blood. But I think the best ethical thing would be to use your own blood.
I mean,
no complications.
Definitely seems a bit safer.
Like if you could drink your own blood to stay young, would you? Like if it was definitely something that worked, would you drink
we
your
all
own blood?
do it in that, like, when you have a cut, you put your finger in your mouth, don't you? If you've got a cut on your finger or whatever. I
did when I was like 10, not now.
Oh, I probably still do it.
Very irony.
Yeah, but we've all tasted blood, basically.
Yeah,
at some point.
A rest day.
It's not like a horrendous flavor.
Well, I don't particularly like the taste of blood.
Maybe it's because I'm anemic that I'm like, iron.
Yeah.
What was the question?
We're talking about real vampires there. So there are people that drink small amounts of blood to stay healthy. There are communities out there that self-identify as vampires, and they can be found on the internet and in cities and towns around the world, living their life as vampires. But some vampires, like we said, ethical vampires, don't ingest human blood, but claim to feed off the energy of others. So we're going into like...
fucking psychic vampires. We know they exist. We've met them loads.
Yes. Narcissists, succubus. But then you get good energy, don't you? And you can feed off of good energy. So we could be good vampire succubuses, right?
Yeah, I guess. Is that what they're identifying as?
Yeah. Well, so there are actual self-identified vampires out there. So maybe we don't see them during the day because they're out at night.
I have met a couple of people, like I said, in my goth days, going to the electric ballroom on a Friday and then Slimelight on a Saturday.
Electric ballroom.
So the other way around. Friday electric ballroom.
Yeah.
Full tilt. And then Saturday night Slimelight. Met lots of people that called themselves vampires.
Right.
And some of them
Did you befriend any of these people?
No, I don't think I was friends with any of them. Not because they were vampires, but because I just didn't like them. I didn't like many people that I met and meet. Some of them would drink each other's blood, which thoroughly unhygienic unless you do the right checks.
I would not recommend that to your listeners, to drink other people's blood. It's like sharing a needle and getting a tattoo with someone. You don't do that. Or like being blood brothers and all that.
Yeah,
we did.
Not a good idea. No, I don't recommend that at all.
No.
Okay, great. They were doing it consensually, but I can't imagine that they're getting all the tests and then doing it in a sterile clinic with a doctor.
Going back to your Patreons. Was it Patreon or patrons?
Well, they're patrons on Patreon.
All right. You've made so many references about your goth days. I think you need to put up some pictures on your Patreon.
Did you see the picture that my sister posted recently or reposted?
No.
I just need to find it because you're going to fucking piss yourself laughing. She posted it.
I'm going to love you. I'm going to see it and be like, I wish I was friends with her back in those days.
You will. My sister and I, we used to be goths. And this was on a family holiday.
Where were you?
In the Lake District.
Wow.
With my parents. I think I was maybe 14 and she was 12, 13.
Oh my gosh. You really just do look like you were children of vampires. I absolutely love it.
Typo negative jumper. It was one of my favorite jumpers. I don't know what my sister's
You two
wearing,
look
but
so cool.
Exactly.
I think there's something about dressing all in black, though. You know me, I like my colorful stuff. But then there are some days I'm just like black, all black. I even wore a black top for this episode. It just looks sexy. There's something mysterious about it,
sexy,
right?
mysterious, sophisticated. Yeah. She says, covering her black outfit with leopard print. So sophisticated.
And pink nails for me. Yeah. So, we were talking about vampires and graves and stuff and how people were put to death. Recently, the New York Post, just a few days ago, actually, they found skeletal remains of a woman who was likely to be believed as a vampire at the time she died, because the skeletal remains, she had a sickle around her throat. So this looked like a metal device going all the way around, and that was still there on these remains. They thought that she would have been a vampire.
Was that to make sure she couldn't come back from the dead or something?
I assume so. They found her in Poland, and they said it's a 17th century graveyard. So she'd been pinned to the ground with this sickle across her throat. So I'm hoping that she was dead before they did that, because if not, I guess that's probably how she would have died. But this sickle is actually a popular farming tool that was commonly used by suspicious Poles in the 1600s to try and restrain a deceased person thought to be a vampire, so they couldn't return from the dead. So yeah, you're right. She'd be dead, and then that's put over her neck, so she couldn't then get up and wreak havoc.
Oh, that's creepy.
So also, she had a padlock wrapped around her toe, which also goes into the theory that she was considered a vampire at the time. The lock would have been used during the burial process to symbolize the impossibility of returning. If you were struggling, you wouldn't mind missing a toe. I don't know.
Yeah, and also if you're scared of vampires, you'd be like, I want a bit more protection against this symbol of not returning.
True. But I guess it's just a nice symbol. It's not a nice symbol. It's just a symbol. The main thing was the neck thing. The 17th century had loads of reports of outbreak of vampires. It was around that
the
time.
Epidemic.
But, vampire epidemic. So there was loads of unusual burial practices that became common in Poland. So I don't even think that this would be a crazy thing to uncover, because there were so many people that were treated like vampires when they died. And so many practices like mutilation or whatever, just to make sure that these people couldn't come back to do loads of things to their local villages.
Might as well. Like our superstitions episode. You'd be like, I don't know if this is true or not, if this will work or not, but why not? Case. What's the harm?
Sickles weren't the only things that they did. They would often cut off their heads, cut off their legs.
So they couldn't run after you?
Yeah, I guess so. But also place the deceased face down to bite into the ground. Not sure what that's about, because if you woke up, you'd be like, gross, I'm not going to continue doing that. But then I guess if you had the thing around your neck, you couldn't. Maybe they thought they were just going to suffocate or something. They would burn them and smash them with a stone. So basically just obliterate the bodies. So they had absolutely no way of coming back.
Nice.
Yeah. That's me for the vampire episode. Sorry to end on such a downer.
Yeah. Thank you for talking to me about sexy vampires. That's going to be, should I make the episode title Sexy Vampires? I think so.
I think you should. With a whole picture of me photoshopped in with Eric Northman and the other girl.
With your
at Fantasia.
Real
with my real fangs.
And me as a revamp of my 90s goth days. Check out Women Who Rebrand, because, well, I'm on it sometimes for a start.
Yes.
And Sarita's on it all the time. So what more could you ask for of a podcast when you're not listening to this one? All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We Know the Moon is the official podcast for the Goddess Temple Twickenham. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. You can also visit our website, weknewthemoon.co.uk, for all of our upcoming events and merch. If you sign up for any amount on our Patreon, you'll be able to watch our video recordings of our podcast from season 4 onwards, with all the raw bits. That usually means more swearing. Thanks for listening.